Hello everyone and welcome to the Activist Lawyer podcast. My name is Sarah Henry and I'm your host to this podcast, which offers a platform for lawyers to share their story and their journey into law and activism. Our guests will discuss the challenges and highlights of their work, as well as important cases, opinions on legal and political matters, and will offer up advice and tips for anyone interested in pursuing a career in human rights law, public interest law, or criminal justice. The Activist Lawyer podcast is brought to you by the Granite Podcast Studio. Thank you so much for listening. So today we've quite a special episode of Activist Lawyer. We are following up on one of our episodes recorded last year featuring Mahbouba Faiz from Afghanistan, who is a lawyer living in Ireland, academic Mahia Ostovar from Iran, who is lecturing in Ireland, and renowned author and campaigner Robin Swan. So you'll remember that episode focused on their campaign and the campaign in general to end gender apartheid. Of course, this is very much a global issue, but part of the podcast that we focused on in that campaign was what was being done on the ground in Ireland. So since then, the campaign, thankfully, has gathered pace, and we have Emily Humphreys today from the campaign, from the team, who's going to share an update with us. And the team have been doing something really that just struck me as so fundamentally important and effective. They have been actively engaging with students in Ireland, students and young people on the issue of gender apartheid, explaining what it is and how they can support their efforts to end it. Many of our own distinguished and experienced lawyers who joined me as guests on the podcast have mentioned the importance of the next generation carrying forth that baton, the compassion and determination to make change happen and to continue to provide a voice to people who need support, representation and indeed justice. Well, I am so impressed by what the students, I'm joined today by Rachel, Forrest and Phoebe Sexton from Midleton in Cork, who have been doing so much to encourage activism and engagement among their peers and friends. So welcome to the studio, Emily, Rachel and Phoebe.
Thank you so much.
So before we get down to the campaign, Emily, firstly with you, I know you're currently studying a master's in conflict transformation and social justice in Queen's, and you've also worked for several years in the human rights field. You are actively involved in the campaign to end gender apartheid in Ireland. Can you first perhaps remind us about what gender apartheid means and what work you and your team have been doing since we last discussed the issue of gender apartheid on the podcast?
Sure, Sarah. Yeah, I'll just go straight into the definition, okay? So the UN Working Group on Discrimination Against Women and Girls have proposed the following definition for gender apartheid, calling it inhumane acts which are committed in the context of an institutionalized regime of systematic oppression and domination by one gender group over any other gender group or groups, and importantly, committed to the intention of maintaining that regime. Now, this definition really came out of work that began in the 1990s by Afghan women who were responding to the Taliban regime at that time. And if we remember, in the 1990s, this was when racial apartheid was being actively called out and the international community was responding for what was happening in South Africa. And in Afghanistan, the women, both within the country and the diaspora, recognized that there were similar acts of oppression and domination being carried out over them as women for their gender, as was happening in South Africa from the white ruling class against the black population. So they called out for gender apartheid to be recognized also as a crime and even a crime against humanity, which apartheid is recognised as a crime against humanity. Now, bringing it more to present day, the international campaign to end gender apartheid was formally created in 2023, so only 2 years ago. And this was created from both Afghan but also Iranian diaspora communities, also within Afghanistan and Iran, and really calling for gender apartheid to be codified within international law. And this really came off the bat of the fact that at the UN level, there have been advancements in actually creating an international convention on crimes against humanity, because I'm sure many listeners are aware, but for those who aren't, Actually, the only conventions on crimes against humanity are on genocide and then war crimes, but there is not actually one which amasses the 15 crimes against humanity which are recognised under the Rome Statute, which is seen over by the International Criminal Court. So this is a really significant gap in international legal frameworks. And there has been a lot of work being done really since 2008 for there to be an international convention on crimes against humanity. And within this convention, there's 15 crimes against humanity. So we're talking murder, we're talking enslavement, imprisonment, torture, but apartheid is also there. So the international campaign to end gender apartheid recognized, okay, gender apartheid can be codified within apartheid as a international crime against humanity. And this is to close that legal gap and then also to close an impunity gap and really to make this a legal tool, a strong legal tool to prevent gender apartheid, but also react to when it is happening. And as we can see, this is happening both within Afghanistan and also in Iran, as is given in testimonies by Afghan women, by Iranian women. We see it in the decrees that are being passed in Afghanistan, 120 already since August 2021. Some of the ones that I'm sure come to many people's minds are the fact that in Afghanistan, women are really not part of public life. They are essentially silenced and they have to remain within their homes. Even there is a decree that their voices cannot be too loud. Like that in itself is prohibited and punishable. And then, of course, in Iran, we see the Women Life Freedom Movement, which came out of the death of Masha Amini and numerous other young girls in Iran who died at the hands of the morality police. So this is really to give a very summarized background of where the campaign comes from, why it is important to codify gender apartheid as a crime against humanity, because there is movement, there is momentum happening at the UN level. So back in September, you did a great episode with some of my colleagues from the Irish campaign to end gender apartheid. That was with Robin Mahbouba from Afghanistan and Moya from Iran. And what you were speaking about at that time was, the UN level advancements and discussions about the actual designing of an international convention on crimes against humanity. And I'm happy to say that the consensus at the UN General Assembly was that they agreed, all of the member states, to actually create an international convention on crimes against humanity. Now, this would not happen until 2029, so it's a long road. We have 4 years ahead, but however, there will be numerous steps and stages during this 4-year progress where the draft articles are going to be amended, and essentially for, the whole machine, which is the United Nations, to arrive at a point where they have that package ready, they have that convention on crimes against humanity ready. So yeah, that's kind of the update that I wanted to share. And also, from the campaign, we are the Irish group, the Irish faction, let's say, of the international campaign to end gender apartheid. We've been working both, I suppose, top down and bottom up. Just to mention a few points about what we've been managing to do between a very small team. And yeah, I'm sad some of my colleagues can't be here today, but we have a very small but mighty team. So what we've been doing is meeting with government officials, really encouraging that Irish government takes this up as a priority in terms of their international action and how they are promoting women's rights, girls' rights, and also speaking out against gender apartheid. Ireland is already taking a very exemplary position in terms of Palestine and some other issues. So we're encouraging them really to take up this issue as well, both on the UN level and in international spaces. We also have been meeting with the Department of Foreign Affairs, and then in the Dáil, what we're hoping to do this year is to engage with the Dáil Foreign Affairs Committee and then also the Dáil Women's Caucus Group. So that's kind of top level what we're managing to do. And then bottom up level, engaging with county councils. I come from Waterford, and I'm very proud to see that Waterford was the first county council to actually pass a motion in favour of supporting the treaty, the convention where gender apartheid is codified. That was led by Councillor Mary Roach. So shout out to Mary Roach. She really was a great ally in this campaign. And then we are also, speaking with schools, and that's why we're here really today to talk about passing this torch on to young people. So on the International Women's Day on the 8th of March, we went to Midleton College, which is actually a school I went to, but we went to meet with students who are studying the politics and society curriculum, because we felt like it's kind of a good fit. And I know it's still kind of in its exploration phase, this curriculum. It's not in all schools. I think there's about 25 schools around the state where they have this as an option for a Leaving Cert cycle. But we're starting that. And the first effort has already led to some great fruitful results, which I know the students here are going to speak about. But that's essentially what we've been up to. So we've been busy, and hopefully this year in the fall, we'd like to meet with more schools, raise more awareness, get more young people activated and involved in talking about it. So that's my summarised but kind of relatively long roundup of what's been happening since September.
Well, firstly, Emily, that was a really informative description of the issue itself and where we're at, both on an international level and then what needs to be done here on the ground in Ireland. So thank you for that. And yes, as you said, the gap is significant in the legal framework, particularly as we see both regimes, the Taliban and the regime in Iran, become ever more oppressive against women. And the testimonies that I'm hearing and that are being shared around the world are really quite worrying. So as you said, this has to be a priority, and you and your small but mighty team are doing a fantastic job to keep this on the table, and I think it's really important that everyone gets behind this. So you mentioned there the students and Midleton, and we're joined by Rachel and Phoebe, who are going to talk us through their activities of late. I'll start with yourself first, Rachel. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Not at all. So first of all, we've a little introduction there from Emily about how your school and you got involved in this. But what really struck you when you heard about the issue, and why did you feel the need to become part of this campaign in the first place?
Yeah, so I always say I can definitely speak for students and teachers alike who listened to the talk that day when the girls came in. I think even in finding out the actual definition of gender apartheid in itself, I myself can confidently say, not that I wasn't aware of the issues going on, but the whole End Gender Apartheid campaign was completely new to my ears. So I think sort of as politics and society classes, we are all sort of interested already in the wider world and politics and issues that are going on outside of our own communities. But I think this sort of had a huge influence on us and kind of getting the ball rolling and actually getting involved hands-on. I think you can learn all about the issues. You can watch the news, you can read the newspapers, but having sort of a platform yourself to be able to go out and educate more young people and get them involved, I think it really spoke out to us. So after the talk, I spoke with Robin, and I was just sort of asking, was there anything that we could do, anything small, if we could post something on the school app or the school website. And I suppose I kind of got started from there. I then immediately went and I talked with Phoebe, Bella and Maria. We're all in Mr. Hobson's politics class, so I knew that they would completely and utterly be right where they'd have my same mindset on the issue, and they all were at the talk as well. So once we all started talking, we sort of got the idea of the walk. The Greenway from Midleton to Mogeely is sort of a new thing to the local community. Yeah. So we thought we'd use our resources to our advantage. And it sort of just sprouted from there.
And we'll talk a little bit more about the walk towards the end and how people can support that and support your work. But you mentioned there that there's a general interest, I suppose, among your peers in politics, and you're interested in that class. But you do have a little bit of a background in human rights already and activism. Can you share that with us and maybe how you might bring that forward through this work?
Yeah, of course. So I think I sort of had a slight advantage from a young age. My own granny, she founded a charity just over 25 years ago with street children in Calcutta in India. So I had the amazing opportunity I visited Calcutta twice myself. And I think sort of seeing the level of poverty over there and the social and the economic injustice that exists in our world with my own eyes, and being able to meet with people there who have suffered under, this sort of an unfair sort of way of life. I like to look at it. I think they've, especially with our own privilege and like our hands, I think as students, I'm a girl and I go to school and I hang out with my friends and I dance, and, I've sort of never been told that I can't do something because of, my gender, of where I've landed in life. But I think seeing people who have suffered just genuinely just based off where they were born and, the family they were born into, I think it sort of just completely altered my perspective. I knew it wasn't right. So I think that sort of helped me with this, because I think I kind of have, and Phoebe as well came to India with me 2 years ago. So I think, so we both sort of had this altered perspective compared. I think a lot of people obviously know what's going on, but just being able to see it firsthand definitely gave me a upper hand on sort of understanding the level.
Excellent. Brilliant. And Phoebe, over to you. Well, I'm assuming you got involved with the campaign for similar reasons as Rachel, and you obviously have a similar passion as well to support initiatives like this. I'm wondering, how was it in terms of engaging with your peers, and how did you approach other students to get involved? I mean, both of you seem to be naturally kind of attracted to this type of work in this campaign as well. And Rachel, you gave very good reasons for that. But how are other students and your peers receptive to the campaign and learning more about it?
I think at the start it was actually kind of difficult. Like, we go around to all our friends telling everybody, but I think when people don't understand really what's happening, it's really hard to get people to kind of be engaged. But we kind of decided to do a few things to help engage students. We talked in our assembly in school and about gender apartheid, and we explained kind of what's happening in countries like Afghanistan and Iran, and we kind of told them how they can support the campaign, and I think that really helped. We also held a Red Day in our school on the 9th of April, and we asked everyone to wear red to kind of show their support for the End Gender Apartheid campaign. And it was really successful. Everyone wore red. And I think, when you keep telling people about it, you keep explaining, I think they really became more involved. Yeah. And we're also organising for other schools in Midleton and in the surrounding areas to come to our school and listen to the same talk that we heard. Maruba and Maya and Robin have agreed to come back and talk to us again, and the other schools. So I think that'll really help kind of spread the engagement to the other kind of schools and maybe a wider community. I think really the key to engagement is understanding. I think once people understand more the problems, then they're more likely to kind of want to help and make a difference.
Excellent. And I suppose leading on from that, I'm so interested in that piece around engaging with young people around this level of kind of crucial activism. But I read, Rachel, something that you wrote, and I think it's important to highlight here in light of what Phoebe's saying there as well, that you mentioned with everything moving so quickly in the world, we find ourselves polarised to issues outside of our own communities. And that really struck me as very important at the moment. We do find, the world is on fire at the minute with so much happening. But some people might find it difficult to think outside their communities. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on, the importance of looking outside your communities and how having a wider understanding and awareness of what's happening globally also impacts us and helps us as a society.
Sort of my thoughts on that is that us as young people, sort of me and Phoebe, we've been sort of just born into this like digital world. Like we've been completely submerged into like, it's just complete globalization. Like, we've everything on our phones. We see everything on the news. We see everything on social media. So we've sort of always been open to what's going on outside of our own country. But still, I feel like sometimes there's this sort of stigma with young people about getting involved and, getting involved with activism and speaking out. I think what I myself and what we're trying to get across is that, we got this talk in school and we had no idea what the whole End Gender Apartheid campaign was at the time. But even in hearing people's firsthand experience, and we thought, there's something we can do, even if it's only in our community, we can help it grow. We can educate people on what's going on. I think it's really, really important for young people to educate themselves on what's going on outside. I know it's very easy to sort of turn on the news and you watch the stories and there is so much going on. So it's definitely overwhelming. I completely understand that's even overwhelming for us sometimes, you know, because there is so much going on, and sort of we just find that this issue stands out amongst sort of the others, just in the point of it's not even just women's rights, it's sort of human rights. It's something we've seen our own country and everyone in the world has fought for it at some time in history. So I think now, knowing what we can do, and you know, it is possible to help and it is possible for change to happen, I just don't really understand, you know, why we shouldn't take our own privilege in hand. Because obviously as young people in Ireland, you know, everyone comes from different backgrounds, but I think a lot of us have that privilege. You know, we don't think about going to school. A lot of us complain about going to school, you know, oh, we have to go to school and we should do homework. And I think people just can get really, they sort of just forget, you know, that school, education, your freedom of speech, like it's a blessing, you know, like we should be grateful for it. And I think the more people that we sort of expose that to, I think changing people's mindsets on it would just really, really help in order, because young people with social media, you know, it's a powerful tool, you know, young people, like we talk out, we've new opinions, we're sort of like the new generation coming forward. So I think the earlier we can get to these people, the earlier we can get to people our age, you know, the more hope there is for it to grow as we grow, you know, because we're still young. So I think it's sort of we're trying our own community first, but hopefully it'll grow.
Well, I mean, talking about social media there, this maybe all of you have probably recognised this. Social media has been such an effective tool for globally for ending gender apartheid, because very often it's the only way that women who are affected by it or who are voicing or representing those who are affected by it can share actually what's been happening to them. So, you know, most of the kind of visuals or the information that I've seen on it has actually come through women who've been able to use social media very effectively, both in Iran and in Afghanistan. So I feel like, you know, it's one of those instances where we see it as such a positive tool. Am I right? And is that part of what, you know, you're kind of tapping into as well in terms of, you know, your campaign, and it's a really effective way to get young people involved?
100%. I think sort of before, like if you go past like back a few years, I don't think there's ever been such an effective form of like publicizing a piece of information. You know, like we've seen great responses with our Instagram. Even if one person reposts it on their story, you know, it might seem small, but then we might get a couple more followers, and that's a couple more people who are aware of the campaign and they're aware of what gender apartheid is. So it's definitely genuinely our Instagram page has been a huge help in order and spreading awareness. A great
page and really, really active. I've enjoyed following it, and we'll share it as part of this podcast as well. And just Phoebe, I suppose what's next then? You might want to explain a little bit about some of the activities you have coming up, and maybe how people listening today, whether they're in Midleton or the areas around Midleton or communities across Ireland, can get involved in supporting you and your colleagues in this campaign.
I suppose our efforts kind of on a local level have been so far towards this. We're organising a walk on the Greenway from Midleton to Mogilee on the 3rd of May from 10 to 12, basically in support of the End Gender Apartheid campaign. And we're really trying to rally as much support as possible from our local community. We're really trying to get everyone to come. This is going to be a public event, and we're hoping lots of our community will come and walk with us. We're asking everyone to wear red in solidarity in our support for ending gender apartheid. This is also trying to get attention from kind of local politicians and TDs. We're really trying to get the kind of political attention, because I suppose this is all towards the kind of getting gender apartheid recognised as a crime against humanity under international law. I suppose in terms of the walk, that'll also be like food available at the end, and we're going to have music, red face paint. Like it is an awareness campaign, but you know, it's also like a nice day out. So I suppose we would like everyone to come. I suppose, of course, this isn't the end goal. This is just something to try and get our local community kind of involved. So if anybody is living around Midleton, Cove, East Cork, anywhere, and you'd like to come, please tell your friends, tell your family, bring everyone. We're really trying to get the ball rolling here, get as many people as we can involved, and spread the word. even though that's our kind of short-term goal and long-term goal. And so we just want to do everything we can to support the campaign and to keep supporting it. If we could even get other people involved in different communities, maybe they can organise similar things and just basically have the message spread.
It's brilliant. Well, you're doing a fantastic job so far, and I really urge anybody to check out the Instagram page. Just remind me what it is again, and I'll share it in the link anyway, but it's End Gender Apartheid. And what's the handle?
End.Gender Apartheid.
End.Gender
Apartheid.
Yeah, I mean, even if you built up some followers there, and I'm sure people will look at what you're doing and replicate a lot of it, which would be fantastic across communities in Ireland. So best of luck with that. And we are happy to, of course, share any of your work there. And finally, Emily, back to the campaign at large, perhaps in terms of the Irish campaign on ending gender apartheid. Likewise, how can listeners continue to support that work or start to support your work? And, what's coming up in terms of the overall campaign from an Irish perspective?
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, as I was saying, really in the months ahead, we'd like to continue with the bottom-up initiatives, meeting with more schools, local politicians, and then on the top down, try and get in with the Dáil, the Foreign Affairs committees, the women caucuses, and then, keep meeting with the Department of Foreign Affairs, and they have been very receptive and very open to meetings. So I just want to encourage them to keep along that path. And if people want to follow what's happening in terms of End Gender Apartheid, there is a website which really is an umbrella website for the international campaign. It's End Gender Apartheid Today. There are hashtags you can use, hashtag End Gender Apartheid or United Against Gender Apartheid. I'd absolutely encourage people to join the walk on May the 3rd or even just support it. The students have created an Instagram page and I just want to really celebrate how they are organising a very positive activity in a world that is full of despair and can absolutely be dragging us down. But, this is an opportunity for the community to come together and feel like there is power in our actions, there truly is. So I really commend them for what they're doing, and we can work together and see further along the line, what further events we can do and activities we can do. But it's absolutely being seen. It's visible. Already the international campaign to end gender apartheid has shared some of their social media posts. Also the New York group have been following. So, there is an international spotlight on what these students are doing. So, they shouldn't they should be aware of this and be proud of themselves. And in terms of actually getting involved, absolutely, we would love to have more people involved in the group, in the Irish campaign to end gender apartheid. We're particularly looking for people to help us out on policy, on legal issues, but also in communications, because we're all volunteers, we're doing this in our spare time, but we see that we need to be more present. And there needs to be more pressure and there needs to be more work done. It is a long road ahead. As I mentioned, 2029, when the Convention against Crimes Against Humanity should be packaged together. But that's also a long time. And in the meantime, there are Afghan and Iranian women and young girls who are suffering under the systems of gender apartheid. I just want to mention as well, in case anybody wants to reach out to us directly, if you want to get involved in the campaign, we are using Robin's email, which is Robin, SWANROBBYN@yahoo.co.uk. So you can reach out to us that way. Or if not, I want to suggest maybe, Sarah, if there's a activist lawyer email, you can get in touch with you directly and then, passed on any messages passed on to us then directly. But we're hoping this year also to put together a bit of a communications plan and formalise a bit more, our presence online and how people can engage with us. And the last point is that, our members in our group, we have numerous Afghan and Iranian women in this group who are living in Ireland. Ireland has been a really important sanctuary for people who are fleeing war, violence, discrimination. So we should absolutely be proud of that. And one of our members, Basira Baigam, has recently published an article on the voices of Afghan women, their defiance in the face of such struggle and oppression. And we'll include this in the podcast description and make sure people can read that as well. So.
Yes.
That's it, basically.
That's it. Well, that's a lot. You've done such fantastic work, as you mentioned, with a really small team, taken off in Midleton as well with all of the students who are so proactive and raising amazing awareness around this. So it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Emily, Rachel and Phoebe. And we will, of course, share your work as much as we can. And anybody who wants to follow up on that, please check the show notes where we'll be sharing some of the links and also the link to the article that Emily just mentioned as well. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Sarah.
So much.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining me today. If you like the show, please remember to share and leave a review if you have a moment. And you can also check out our website, www.activistlawyer.com, where you will see some blog articles written by our guests and contributors, as well as some fabulous Activist Lawyer merchandise.
This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service, where our team using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.